Welcome back to the Loco Experience podcast. My guests today are Joe and Melissa Basta. Sounds like, or rhymes with pasta.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the co-founders and chief volunteers at Tellus. And so, fun to say it this way, but Melissa, why don't you tell us what Tellus is all about?
Well, Tellus is an outdoor apparel brand, local here to Fort Collins. We started probably about 3.5 years ago. And we officially opened our flagship store, big flagship store right here in Fort Collins in December of 2023.
Okay. And Tellus is outdoor gear of all sorts. Is that right? Like rain gear, backpacks?
Mm-hmm. Like all of it. When you think of what people like to do who live here in Fort Collins, I would think of, anything you do outside, biking, hiking, paddle boarding. We have everything from, outdoor pants that you would hike in to shorts that you would hike in to performance wear for running and just working out or walking your dog.
Isn't that a crowded space? Like, isn't there too many brands in that space already?
It is a crowded space, but we're doing things a little bit differently. So a couple of things that set us apart are we made the choice to make all of our products using recycled or organic materials, and we're a social enterprise in that we give back 100% of our net profits to environmental initiatives.
Interesting. Are you allowed to retain net profits to grow your inventory and grow?
We are, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we cover overhead and then reinvest.
Okay, fair enough. But if the owners aren't going to take any money out of this, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, that is true.
That's so awesome. And how long did this sit in the cooker for? Like, was this an idea for years, or did it, like, after, I knew you had a business journey before, Joe, and you had a prior career?
Yes, I would say it stewed for a while, and this is actually probably a better question for Joe to answer because it goes all the way back to his days, probably stemming from your days in Outward Bound and then coming out of Peace Corps and
Let's do it.
and where you're at.
Sure. So right out of college, I was I worked with Colorado Outward Bound.
Okay.
I did that for 2 seasons. I was an instructor for outdoor leadership program.
Okay.
Really gave me the bug for all things outdoors, especially in Colorado. I was stationed in Silverton, Colorado. Worked with disadvantaged youths, 21-day programs out there.
Okay.
So we're actually out in the wilderness for
Were
21
you
days.
trained to do this? Were you like a counselor or something?
Outward Bound does train you as
see.
as an instructor.
Okay.
Yeah, so you do an intensive training for a few months prior to the program starting.
Gotcha.
So, and I was a student of Outward Bound when I was 16, which it did a lot for me as well.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I got the bug early on in my life. So I was always in the mountains, playing in the mountains, hiking in the mountains, camping in the mountains for many, many years. And I was always a gearhead. And anytime I bought a $200 plus jacket, I was always evaluating it, wondering why this pocket was here, wondering why there wasn't a pocket there, durability, longevity. It was, actually rainproof or, rain resistant.
Yeah.
So when I sold my previous business, which was here in town in 2019, in 2020, obviously COVID hit. And that was really the time that Melissa and I started talking about, can we build a true social enterprise within this space, which, as you mentioned, is a very crowded space. But where we really differentiate ourselves is the 100% give back. After all, all of our employees are paid, our utilities are paid.
Right.
Overhead, reinvesting in the company. So far so good. We've been able to give these past 2 years now to the Nature Conservancy, which is our main giving partner.
Okay.
It's actually through the Boulder chapter. And in the giving, you get to choose a point of sale, what's dear to your heart. It's reforestation here within Colorado, conservation U.S.-wide, which is called America the Beautiful, as well as coral reef protection, which is an international program with them.
Yeah. Coral's such a fascinating element of the world. Have you heard this? That if they have the same kind of coral from the same part of the world, but you take one piece and put it under a bucket, under a sink in the UK, it'll still blossom at the same time that coral would in that original destination or in Brazil.
Did not know that.
Yeah, they're all like somehow like telepathically. They're like, I don't know, they're connected somehow in that even without access to tides or water or
Wow.
sun or moon, they somehow reproduce the same species on the same day. They bloom together.
It's interesting. I mean, we follow a fair amount of groups in coral reef work through our social media, and watching the ones that have the coral reef gardens is really interesting, and how they're literally underwater gardens.
Yeah, and I was just watching actually a meat eater podcast, our meat eater video the other night on all the fish that are around all the oil rigs off of Texas and Louisiana, especially, in particular, they started decommissioning them and tipping them over and stuff, but then other boats would hit them sometimes and different things. And so they would generally just leave them stand now, and they're like, there's coral growing all over.
Essentially becoming a reef.
Yeah,
itself.
it's becoming a reef right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So anyway,
interesting.
I digress.
Interesting.
So a sustainable cause. So over time, you want it to grow and grow, presumably, right? Offer more products, employ more people, and give more dollars.
The more we grow, the more we can give
Yeah.
to these causes. And so only being a year and a half into it, we're still in startup mode.
Sure.
Here in Fort Collins, with our flagship store being here, as Melissa said, off of Linden Street, downtown Fort Collins, and then online sales. So
Sure.
we are a little different. We're direct to consumer. So we do not sell wholesale
Okay.
to any wholesalers. Like
Can't get it on Amazon or anything?
You can't get it to Amazon or REI
Nice.
or locally here at Jack's. And the reason why we're doing that mainly is, first off, we do have lower volumes.
Yep.
We have very high quality goods as far as we stand behind them. I think we produce roughly 36 pieces, mostly clothing, some accessories like duffel bags, backpacks, and as Melissa said, all made out of recycled and organic material. But really, direct to consumer gives us, more profit, to us that we can give, to the causes.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there any other companies doing that?
Most of our competitors, the majority of our larger competitors, obviously, you got Patagonia, you have North Face, you have Cotopaxi. The majority of those companies, it's 1% back to the planet. We're 100% back to the planet.
In other categories, are there companies? Did you study other completely give back
Good
kind
question.
of organizations?
Good question. I was in the food product business prior to this business for 20 years, and we specialize in baking ingredients. And really, I was always fascinated with Newman's Own, which was your first really upscale food product.
Yeah.
And so here you have a guy like Paul Newman, successful Academy Award winner. He raced cars. He accomplished everything he wanted. And so later in his career, he actually started Newman's Own, food products. I believe starting with salad dressing, and now I believe there's probably about 40, 50 different products.
Yeah.
So that's 100% of those profits go to charitable causes.
Okay.
And so I was always fascinated with that concept and that model.
Yeah.
Which gave us the idea
That was
of,
kind of the
can we push it
inspirational
towards,
product.
towards this industry, the outdoor apparel industry.
How does shipping work and stuff? If you got to become experts at shipping then too, right? If you're direct to consumer, you're using FedEx or
correct
whatever.
That's one of the easiest parts is, we get an order in and we ship it through UPS, United States Postal Service, or FedEx, when an order comes in.
And it just, whatever size box, whatever the right
Correct,
price is, you
correct.
probably have a system even that
you
checks
order
it
a
out.
large jacket and a T-shirt and a mug. We bag it up and actually recycled bags from post-consumer recycled bags, and then we deliver it to your doorstep.
I dig it. What's your timeline? Are you trying to spin this thing up and then be able to? I mean, you're not very old, but running a startup is hard, and what do you want to achieve here?
Sure. The first really 3 to 5 years, we wanted to focus here locally on spreading the word here in northern Colorado.
Yeah.
This area has grown to about 185,000 in population.
Yeah.
I think we just touched the surface of getting our message and the word out of, and we're actually in the River District, which is not in downtown Fort Collins. It's not on the square. It's not.
Yeah, it's kind of on the edge. Yeah.
It's kind of on the
Yep.
edge. It's a growing, upcoming area.
Yep.
So we're a bit of a destination, word of mouth on a referral basis. So really, we want to focus strictly on the flagship store. I believe, with Fort Collins being such a vibrant economy, with Colorado State University being here, and a lot of parents come in, students come in, they go back to their homes in different parts of the country.
Yep.
And what we're finding out, with that is the word is spreading to these different locations.
Yeah.
We have, parents that stop by the store, they buy a piece or two, and I would say probably about 50% of our online orders are coming from reorders from people who actually visit the store.
That's
here in
cool.
Fort Collins. And with Fort Collins being a tourist destination as well.
Yeah.
That's really helping us tremendously.
Well, and like, good job making your brand highly visible but not obnoxious on every item you have.
Thank
You
you.
can't miss it, but it's not like
we like to
annoying.
call it simple elegance.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And so, really, this kind of market. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a Russian economist on, and he talked about the importance of kind of organic growth brands that get so kind of much love and attention and strong and popular within their region. They don't need to be spun up by a bunch of private equity or have a bunch of investors, but they catch on, and then they're able to kind of escape the gravity of that region.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate to be, you're looking at the two primary investors. So,
Right.
In previous companies, I worked with private equity, I worked with banks. And really, we wanted to start this off small, where we don't have that pressure from outside groups. Really trying to ramp you up to, how fast can you get to your first million? How fast can you get to your $5 million in sales? So you really hit the nail on the head as far as growing organically. There's really no pressure on our end to ramp this up. Going from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds.
Yeah.
We really do want to take our time and do
Yeah, it can be a slow money play, regardless.
Correct.
Melissa, how do you guys divide what you do? What are you each of you best at in this vision, in this
You
journey?
know, that's a good question. One of our big company slogans is adventure with purpose. And I feel like, our backgrounds, what we each bring to the table, Joe being, the big outdoor person and, being in
the gearhead, whatever. All
the
that.
gearhead and all that. And my background's really in public relations and public affairs. And over the years, I've worked on lots of issues. So for me, the part of the business that I work most on is kind of our outward facing, working with the marketing team, but then also on the give back. And so I spent a lot of time kind of researching the organizations, and we eventually landed on the Nature Conservancy. So I would say I do a lot of that piece. Joe focuses a lot on the operations with his background from his previous business as well, I think. So we complement each other that way. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, we definitely have two different complete skill sets. With Melissa's background in public relations, her previous employment, with National Geographic, which she is very humble. She doesn't like to bring that up.
We'll talk more about that.
So and then supply chain too. I have a pretty substantial background in supply chain, and our goods are made in Vietnam. We chose Vietnam because they're known for higher quality goods.
Okay.
So 100% of our products are made in Vietnam. Obviously, we designed them here locally. We worked with a local designer as well as collaborated with Colorado State University, who has a great fashion and design school here.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question. So talk to me more about the design. Like, how many designs did you launch with? Where did you come up with them? How much were you involved?
Oh, very involved. I really play by if I'm not going to wear it, we're not going to produce it personally, and I think Melissa can say the same. It's a pretty intense, tedious process. You start with obviously the design, and then once you get that design down, obviously textiles and fabrics is a very big part of that. Being fairly limited, getting back to recycled and organic materials. We've come a long way. There's some great.
And can you look through catalogs looking for these recycled and organic materials, or how do you?
You work directly with the textiles. So the vast majority of our textiles and our fabrics come from Taiwan. We do have for our duffel bags, we do use a U.S. textile here, which is a great product. It's 100% waterproof, 100% recycled, and that goes in our duffel bags and our backpacks. So once you kind of nail that down, you go through different variations of prototypes. We probably averaged 4 prototypes per piece. Where you're changing dimensions, you're changing styles, collar size, all the way to your cuffs.
So there's a substantial capital investment to launch something like this, but
There
the
is.
intellectual investment
There
is probably even more
Yeah,
substantial
so
in a way.
Prior to opening up the store, Kurt, we spent roughly about 2 years really on deep dive on R&D
Yeah.
behind all this. So we spent close to 2.5 years developing the products, and then we launched the store in December 2023.
Okay. Talk to me about, I guess, not aspirational brands, because I think you're trying to be the best brand in your space.
Sure.
But what were you wearing before, I guess, is probably the right way to answer that or ask that question.
Great question. Good way to bring up the competition. Really for me personally, I think Patagonia does a fantastic job. They got a 50-year, both Patagonia and North Face has roughly a 50-year head start on us.
Yep.
Patagonia, in our opinion, they're doing a lot of the right things. They have many products. We're just a fraction of their products. They're very transparent, which we stand by that as well. We want to be 100% transparent, but we wanted to come out of the gates with 100% of our products made out of either recycled or organic materials.
Yeah.
I believe Patagonia, and don't quote me on this, but I believe they touted about a year and a half ago that about 70% of their products are made out of recycled and organic materials.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little bit higher now, but they're probably in the realm of 300 different products. Where,
Right.
Compared to 36,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite different. And then we just started phase 2. We call that phase 1 with those initial products. We were just wrapping up phase 2 right now.
Okay, so you've been back in the design room.
We're back in the
kinda.
design, and we're back in the design phase of things, which is exciting. These are going to be more lifestyle pieces, which we're very excited about. But you're always thinking a year ahead. So everything that we're doing now is going to land roughly a year from now, roughly 12 months. So just to pull a product out of a place like Vietnam, once you place that order, it takes about 6 to 8 months to bring back into the country.
Now, I think, wasn't Vietnam one of the first countries to be like, we want to make a deal on the tariff thing? Is that my memory?
Yeah, our heads have been definitely spinning.
I'm sure you've been noticing there's some
our
talk about tariffs and stuff.
With all this commotion and this dialogue about tariffs the last 2 months, it's put a lot of mid-sized and small companies a bit in a bind.
Yeah.
Since we're kind of newbies in the industry, we're not
You have no bargaining
diversified
power.
throughout, and we're working with very, very small minimums. So we're hoping for some clarity here soon.
Yeah.
We're hoping to stay with a number of our manufacturers who we traveled several times to Vietnam to hand select these manufacturers who we feel they're doing all the right things.
Yeah.
So we hope we can continue those relationships. But once again, if we do need to pivot to other countries, that's what we're going to be forced to do. Mm-hmm. But as it stands now, we just can't stomach the tariff difference. It's about 2.5 times what we were paying previously. In a company our size, especially with the 100% give back, it just wouldn't make any sense. That $250 jacket's going to end up being a $400 jacket.
Right. Just makes it impossible.
Right.
So let's, I think we'll come back to Tellus a little bit.
Sure.
and some of the products and design. But I want to hear a little bit more about the business journey leading up to. And Joe dropped that you were with National Geographic for a time. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a short time. Coming out of Peace Corps, I ended up working for the channel in their communications department, working on public relations to launch the channel in markets outside the United States. So the channel was fairly new.
Yep.
And so my work was, really working on getting the channel up and running, but then also promoting some of the, our filming, the films that we make.
Oh,
and,
sure. Yeah.
It's an incredible place to work, a place where, turnover is very low, but you learn a lot from a place like that. Just, the behind the scenes that goes into making those documentaries and just all the good work they do,
Sure.
There's the nonprofit side of National Geographic, and then there's the for-profit side, which is, kind of the magazines, the channels that are income generators, and then you have the society, which funds all the research. And the explorers. And
so it's almost like the Rotary Foundation or something like that, where there's this bucket that's been set aside through the membership and the profits generated by films and documentaries and whatever. Huh,
so it was, I got to
another
work on both
example
sides,
of kind of that public-private. Yeah, social enterprise.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
So, and then your career from there went into more PR especially kind
Well,
of thing?
so coming out of college, I worked for a public affairs firm in Chicago.
Okay.
And that, it was an agency where I worked with, several different clients. And, over the years there, you kind of learn about what you like working on and what you don't. And the projects that I gravitated towards were the ones that seemed to give back more to the community. I can think of one specifically. It was a project called Art Smart. It was run by Marshall Fields at the time, and it was trying to bring, art education back into the, to inner city youth.
Yeah.
And so those were the kinds of projects I gravitated toward. And then there were some that, weren't as fun or weren't as meaningful. And then I think, Joe, you were in the same boat. We both kind of had this early life crisis where, I was maybe 4 years into that job and decided I needed to make a change and wanted to get more involved in work like that. And so that's what led me to become a Peace Corps volunteer.
Oh, you did it later.
We did it later.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it was something I noodled on. Being from Central North Dakota in a real small town, like I didn't even know anybody that had ever been to Peace Corps, but I'd learned about it and kind of looked into it. But I would have done it like right after college.
Right, which is what most people do.
Yeah.
So I looked at a lot of different things. I was kind of, like I said, I was having that early life crisis and evaluating, do I go back to school?
Yeah.
Do I need to change, my job? Do I just need an outward bound moment?
Right.
And, Peace Corps was one of the options on the table. When I looked at everything, it kind of put together, I wanted to be at the grassroots level. I wanted to be more connected to community project work. I wanted to be overseas somewhere. And I also, wanted to be supported in some capacity. And so being Peace Corps volunteer, they do provide you support. They provide you with insurance. If something happens, they're there to evacuate you. And so I jumped off the edge.
Interesting. And what did that look like for you? Like do they pay you actually? Like, do you come home from Peace Corps with more money than you left with, and they provide you housing and stuff, or is it pretty much like a?
It is. You get, while you're serving, you have a monthly stipend, and it's kind of based off of the country that you live in, and how much
you need to eat.
Right, and it's basically
it's about
for
that much.
food and housing.
Fair.
Right, food and housing.
Okay.
It's not very much money. I think mine was maybe, right around $300 a month.
Okay.
So very small. And then after you complete your service, they give you, I can't remember how much it was, but maybe it was like $2,500 when you come out to kind of
Pay a deposit on
regroup
the next
and
apartment.
maybe make a change in your insurance plan because
Buy
they're
a
not going to
car,
cover you anymore.
Put a down payment on a car. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so it is largely a give back kind of a notion right from the start.
Strictly volunteer.
Yeah. Covered just enough. And where were you Peace Corpsing?
So I was in Haiti.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was down there
And
from
circa me?
96 to 2000.
Okay. So it was unfortunately probably better then than it is now.
It was probably the most stable period in the history of the recent history of the country, and I was very fortunate to be there at that time and see it when it was like that.
Yeah. Interesting. And was your Peace Corps tour also in Haiti?
Dominican Republic.
Oh, okay.
So it's connected to Haiti. Melissa definitely had the tougher side of the island.
Sure.
For sure. So I was a Peace Corps volunteer from 97 to 2000. So I was roughly 6 months behind.
Gotcha.
Roughly a year behind her. And that's where we met.
And how, because like they would do some trainings for all the Peace Corps people from time to time, or like you were on the beach on the Haiti side and you saw her, or?
Actually, I went to school. One of my best friends from undergrad had a study abroad program with Melissa. It was a summer program in London, I believe. And when I mentioned I was going to the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic, he mentioned Melissa's name.
Okay.
And, this is right when internet was coming out in the late 90s. So we would write from time to time. We were actually hit by a major hurricane right when we got down there. We were trading notes. We both got dengue fever at the same time. Survived that, obviously. And then roughly, it was about 2 weeks before you left the country. You'd never been to the Dominican Republic side, and she reached out to me saying, "Hey, are you going to be around?" And I was going to be in the capital at this given weekend, and it was Super Bowl weekend, which is when all the male
was
volunteers, all the male volunteers would find, the one TV screen, the one bar that the Super Bowl is playing in. And I said, hey, I am going to be around, but if you want to join 15 of us for a Super Bowl, by all means join us, and the rest is kind of history.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it just like there wasn't any other ladies or fellas around for either of you after that?
It's just that, the funniest thing is, Kurt, is we were both living in Chicago at the same time in the 90s. We had no idea. We interviewed at the same Peace Corps office in Chicago, roughly 6 months apart. And when we started talking, we realized that we lived roughly 4 blocks away from each other. And we shared the same L stop, the same train stop. We probably saw each other, from time to time and didn't know it. I used to, run in the mornings. I would run right in front of her, apartment, which with not knowing that she was there,
of course,
obviously.
Yeah.
And so the stars kind of aligned. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That here we are in the Peace Corps in this, developing country, and we're meeting each other.
Yeah.
And then after the Peace Corps, that's where you actually went to D.C. And I, after the Peace Corps, I came straight here to Fort Collins.
Oh.
Yep.
So you had to slow coax her back out of here.
It took me a couple years. So I moved here in 2000, and she moved out here in 2002.
And what did you move here for, Joe?
Actually, it was the business opportunity. So the name of the business that I bought into was by the name of Custom Blending. That's been in town for right off of Link Lane by the old airport. And then I did roughly an 8-year buy-in into the company.
Okay.
Changed the name to Rodell Vanilla, which we're known for baking ingredients, as I mentioned previously. ADM, very large company, Fortune 500 company, bought us in 2019.
Okay.
Facility is in the Harmony Tech Center, just north of Fossil High School. It's still there.
Yeah.
ADM's doing a great job. They're still growing the business.
Yeah.
Retained the vast majority of our employees and our head managers. So it was a great relationship.
And how, you came here to buy into this thing? Were you already in the industry, or were you shopping for an ingredient blending company?
In Chicago, I was a partner in a restaurant and catering business.
Okay.
So I was always kind of a foodie. And,
Okay.
And then, as Melissa said, we both had early life crisis. Being in food service, your weekends are gone, your holidays are gone.
Yep.
I was working, September 1st to January 1st, 7 days a week. Your families are getting together for holidays. You're missing these precious moments.
Yep.
And it takes a certain type, to be in the restaurant business. So I realized in my late 20s that I wanted to take a different path, but I wanted to time out. Never studied abroad in my undergrad, and that was my moment to say, hey, I'm going to jump off the edge and go to a foreign land and rethink things. And through a friend, actually, one of my best friends, it was his future father-in-law that owned this particular business.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was looking at an exit strategy at the time.
Okay.
His name's John Conway. He's been in this community for many, many years. He grew his whole family grew up here. I think he came in the 70s. And we hit it off and started buying into the company.
Okay.
Started with roughly 7 employees at the time. Ended up.
So the buy-in wasn't super huge because it wasn't a real. But
it was mainly focused on food service, like U.S. Foods, Yancey's back in the day that U.S. Foods bought, Shamrock Foods, and then I really pivoted the company towards retail food products.
Okay.
So with vanilla being a kind of our pillar, other baking cocoa, lemon extract, almond extract, we really kind of hung our hat on about 7 products. And with vanilla, 70% of your world's vanilla actually comes out of Madagascar.
Yeah.
So I had this crazy idea is that we're going to start a processing facility in Madagascar, be the first North American company to do that, to get vertically integrated, within vanilla. So over the course of 15 years, we started a farmer network as
Probably
well.
changed your quality profile and your cost profile.
Completely. We took about 30% on the supply chain by doing that. McCormick being the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, we were able to do a little bit of damage, especially with those products. So we work with about 80% of your North American retail grocers. Costco was our largest account for many years. They still have that account. Trader Joe's. A large portion of my business back then was private label and then 50% was under our own brand. So you can still go into places like King Soopers and see the Rodale brand.
Yeah, yeah.
But we did all of the Kirkland Signature worldwide with Costco, 100% of Trader Joe's, which still comes from Fort Collins.
Interesting.
Kroger,
Which
you know,
still
Whole
comes from the
Foods.
factory in Madagascar there, or
It still
whatever, the
comes, the
processing
beans
plant.
come from Madagascar, and then they're processed here in Fort Collins.
Oh, wow,
Still
okay.
today.
Yeah.
So, but bittersweet, selling that business with my business partner Dan Berlin, who's still local here.
Oh.
And yeah, so that's where we still had a kiddo in the house, and you know, like I said, COVID hit, and so I'm like, I got to do something with myself. And,
Yeah.
and Melissa and I were looking at each other,
And now
and I said,
Tellus is
"Can
here.
we pull this off?" So she's been a trooper, you know, on this journey, and especially focusing on the marketing and the public relation aspects
Yeah.
of the company.
Did you tell me that you grew up in an entrepreneurial family?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. My dad was in the insurance industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is it that you did, like, what skills did you bring to the table to move to Fort Collins and be part of this company?
Getting back to the restaurant catering business.
Yeah, I guess you
know, my
you understood that industry and how to.
Yeah, I understood the nuts and bolts of
Yeah, cool.
business, and then we did small business development in the Peace Corps.
Oh, I see.
So
So you had kind of a business training background of sorts.
We did. So,
Okay.
So I really, it was funny.
Sorry to
No,
like not
no.
give you enough credit.
No, with my dad being in corporate America, he told me as a young man, he goes, start your own business. and he really stuck that in my head at a very young age. So kind of coming out of undergrad, I had my head around, I'm like, I got to start my own business.
Interesting.
Dad said, start my own business, and which I did. So
Yeah.
I'm personally on my third business, and Melissa's been part of two of the businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the third?
The third is Tellus.
Okay.
So
Or
the first was the restaurant in Chicago, and the
gotcha.
second was Rodale here.
Okay,
here,
okay. So
locally in town.
before he coaxed you back out to Colorado, here you guys had a venture
So
together. Right
early
there.
on in the Rodale days, Melissa headed up our marketing efforts as well.
I see. I see.
I supported.
So, Melissa, what were your other elements, and how did you feel about this entrepreneurial lifestyle? Because I'm guessing, as a small 7-employee business that's pivoting, there's probably a lot of interesting times.
Yes, I mean, we're a slowly growing team. You know, we're 4 people with some contractors on the side, helping us kind of move this forward.
Oh, with Tellus.
Are you
now,
talking
yeah.
about specifically?
No, I was
Tellus
thinking
or-
about the early Fort Collins
okay.
days. Like, you had young children already. How many at that time?
We had 3 girls,
Okay.
young, and so yeah, I continued to work up until we had our third, and then it was
Okay.
it became too much. But some of the things I supported were the marketing, the PR, and then also when they decided to get more involved in Madagascar and helping
Yeah,
them
yeah.
research like opportunities there to, support the local economy somehow. And what did that program end up being?
As far as the
The
farmer,
Surge, the farmer network with
we
Surge.
built that to roughly 2,500 farmers.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So we started with 50, and we built it up to 2,500 farmers. So that's where the supply chain piece really kind of
Right,
came in.
right. And probably even consistent growing methods, so they're helping you create consistent products and
We had
different
a whole
things like
team
that.
of agronomists. A large portion of our product was organic when organics were taken off, in the early 2000s. So that was a lot of fun. Brought me back to my Peace Corps. Brought both of us back to our Peace Corps days.
Yeah, yeah.
So in this new endeavor with Tellus, getting back to places like Vietnam, it's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very exciting for us. Getting us back to where we kind of started.
Right. Well, and I guess having been already kind of had that early life crisis and the adventure of going to Haiti, you were, I guess, fairly comfortable with this kind of entrepreneurial, not knowing what the future holds always lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess, after an experience like Peace Corps, you're open to a lot of, new experiences because
Yeah.
I think everything, you're doing in Peace Corps, it's a lot of new experience, and everything
everything's
is, everything's new. But when I think about the early days at Rodale and some of the things, that I helped the team with, going all the way back to that very first trade show that we did, where, we had no idea, was, putting a small 6-foot table. We were surrounded by all these other big companies with their big, fabulous booths. And there we were with our little 6-foot table and the handful of new products that you were trying to bring to the table. And and it worked, but we were willing to throw it out there.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't look pretty and polished. And, I feel like, Tellus was that small right now, like Rodell was back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody knew Rodell, and, we threw it out there and started with the 6-foot table and the two of us at a food show, the fancy food show in San Francisco. And,
Yeah.
here we are today, kind of, pushing the same little rock along with Tellus.
Which we're back to the 6-foot table.
We're back to the
Right.
6-foot table.
Well, and it's been giving a little bit of money away already, which means you don't have to feed it anymore. I assume you had to feed it quite a bit of money and quite a bit of time
we
at
did.
first.
So we were able, which we were very happy about, we were able to, it was $23,000 we were able to give the Nature Conservancy.
That's awesome.
This past, a month ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, well, and I'm sure, I don't know if you had I'm sure you wrote like a business plan and stuff like that, but there's this portion is for our future, and this is how much we can give Tellus to get established.
Correct. And to not have, once again, that financial pressure. So, we don't draw a salary, the two of us, which changes the entire business model.
Totally
And,
right.
And, we're not hand to mouth where, we're trying to put food on the table, which we were definitely during the Rodell days.
Sure.
So we lived that. Melissa's lived that, and she's seen the craziness of starting a business from the grassroots up. So here we are again, and hopefully some of our know-how, being in our mid-50s now, we were able to expedite the whole entire process. Yeah.
Can we talk about some of your favorite products?
Sure.
Maybe can I start with you, Melissa?
Is this for Tellus?
Yeah, for Tellus. Yeah.
Well, I wear my flannel that I love. I mean, I'm a flannel person, and I wear these.
It's got
I'll wear it.
snaps, too.
I can
I like
dress
the
it up. I
snaps.
can wear it in the yard. I can hike. I also love our sun shirts because I've had too much sun over the years, and so my skin likes to hide from the sun. So if you see me out and about, I'm usually wrapped up with sunscreen and a hat, and so probably the UPF 50 shirts that we just came out with this spring,
Okay.
which are kind of made for the water. They're soft. They dry fast. They have UPF 50. We have it in a hoodie and a quarter zip. We have it in a tank for women. So if you're paddleboarding or you're hiking in full sun, it's a great option.
I see so many more people wearing water shirts these days. That seems smart to me.
Even socially as a lifestyle.
Yeah, totally.
And then I'd
Yeah.
say our vest. Being in Colorado, a vest. I mean, it's kind of
Is it
part of the
puffy vest or?
It's a down vest.
Yep, yep.
It's just I feel like you live in Colorado, you have to have a vest, and of course, I'm going to say Tellus is the best.
Down doesn't count as a recycled product, but it's very natural.
Actually, we use
It is recycled.
Oh,
down.
recycled down. Oh, well,
which actually comes
probably
from
great quality.
pillowcases and
Right.
mattresses. And
Yeah.
Asia, they consume a lot of poultry as far as goose, duck.
Sure.
So we were able to use 100% recycled down. in our
Interesting.
So
products.
ours is certified RDS, which is like recycled down standard. I think is what it is. I think that's it.
Recycled down
But,
standard.
Yeah, interesting.
Correct.
How about you, Joe? Do you have a couple of favorites?
Yeah, I have to lead with, especially this time of year, Old Town Button Down. So all of
Okay.
our products have local.
Is that what that
local
is?
names. No, this
No.
is the Foothills flannel.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So we also so the Old Town Button Downs are made out of really interesting fabric by the name of seawool, which we use in about a half a dozen of our products. So it's made out of pulverized oyster shells,
Oh,
blended in with 100% recycled polyester.
oh, interesting.
plastic bottles, actually.
No plastic bottles, yeah. So that's a really great fabric.
Interesting.
But that's more of a lifestyle.
So oyster shells make it durable? More durable?
It makes it a really smooth, consistent fabric, and it's really soft on the skin.
All right.
It has microbial qualities to it.
Okay.
And it's a fantastic product. We make our performance shorts out of it. We make some joggers out of it.
The Old Town Button Down.
Yeah.
Old Town Button Down.
I like it.
And then our shell is a great shell, long speak shell,
Okay.
which is of course another local landmark that
Yeah.
we stare at on a daily basis. That's an extremely durable, hard shell that you can wear, once again as a rain shell as well as a ski
Just
shell,
a- yeah.
which is
Or
fantastic.
casual jacket.
So that's another one of my favorite. Coming off the ski season, I constantly will wear that. And getting back to our duffels, I mean, our duffels are a lot of fun. I mean, we just went on a trip to visit Melissa's family in Indiana. And it's just a great weekend duffel that myself and the kids are using.
Oh, something that my wife got us that we just used for the first time this weekend is little packable things. So you can, you know how the expandable suitcases have the thing?
Yep.
Well, so you can do the same thing with like your shirts and your
Right.
pants and stuff like that. And
It
then you can carry,
compresses, correct.
you can take a week's worth of stuff in
Right.
your duffel bag that way.
Right.
So you might consider that as a future product
I like
because it
that.
would fit well to expand the capacity of your existing line.
We're taking a hiking trip in Scotland with the
There you go, yeah.
family next month. So
Well, you might not
I'll
have time to develop
I'll
it
have to
before
look
then,
into
but,
that. Well, I might have to use it now.
Right.
But
To
They're
see
the
what you think
packing
about it.
cubes, yeah?
Yeah, kind of like
I've
the
never
packing
used
cubes.
them, but I've heard of
Yeah.
them.
And I was kind of, I don't want to say
suspect.
I was a scoff. I wasn't a scoffer yet, but I was suspect. Yeah, but then I packed it and I was like, I
works.
actually got twice as many shirts in
I'll
this
have to take a
space as
look
I
at
would
it.
have.
My,
you know?
my sister swears by that.
It'll make your duffel bag heavier because you got so much stuff in there now. But yeah, for a big trip like that, I think it makes a lot of
that's
sense.
great. That's
So
great.
for what it's worth,
Yeah.
cool. And by the way, we normally have a giveaway
Hmm.
as part of our thing here. Is there? Would you like to give away a Tellus hat or something like that? For,
By all means,
for one of our
by
folks.
all means, we can support you with some hats.
Okay.
Even like since we've been talking about the duffel, I can support you with the duffel.
Okay.
which is great. Then you don't have to worry about sizes. And Clean Canteen is it's co-branded. It's made out of 90% recycled steel. Those are our coffee mugs.
Oh,
We'll
sweet.
be more than happy to provide
Okay.
you some. Yeah.
Well, let's do a hat and a coffee mug.
Okay.
But we have a game that's associated with it.
Oh, okay.
You might not like this game,
okay.
Melissa, because there's some awkward questions in here.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to have you guys draw two questions each, two ping pong balls each.
All right, Melissa.
Oh, no.
And here, I'll hand it to you, and you guys can have it there on the couch
very
with you. And then
nervous.
each of these
You can't look.
questions is tied to. Some of them are like legit business questions, and some are nothing non-politically correct all the way. So who would like to start?
I have number 16.
Number
Or,
16.
yeah, I guess, or 91, depending on how you look at it.
We know this one's 16. Who has had the most significant influence? What one person on your life?
Gosh, that's an interesting question.
And you can't pick Joe and
Good call.
that.
Yep.
You
Even
know,
if it's true.
I would have to say probably one of my first job out of college. I told you, at that public affairs firm by the
Yeah.
name of Jessica Terman and Associates in Chicago. And I would have to say one of the owners,
Yeah.
just a very dynamic person, hardworking, incredibly smart. I learned so much from him, and just the kinds of work that he liked to do and the projects that we had.
Yeah.
And just, he was such a thoughtful leader.
Yeah. I'm reading a book right now from a recent guest. It's called Life Entrepreneurs. And it's kind of like not just building the business that you're looking to build, but building the life you're looking to build. And it sounds like he was living a very intentional life and business journey.
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
That's cool. Thank you. Joe, what number would you
Believe
like to
it or
start
not,
with?
I got number one.
Number one. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. I guess there will be. They all kind of intertwine, but my father from Brooklyn, New York. Funny story. He was an avid camper. He loved the outdoors. He loved the culture and the history of American Indians.
Okay.
And being this is when you didn't want to live in Brooklyn, New York, back in the 50s.
Yeah.
So he was a big influence on. But it was basically all of our camping, all of our vacations were camping. We started with a Volkswagen bus. It was almost a scene out of a circus where you open up the door, and myself, my brother, my sister, two dogs, and my parents would camp in this Volkswagen bus. And I actually
Like upstate New York, kind
well,
of?
actually,
or
I
Adirondacks? I don't really know the region.
I partially grew up in Los Angeles.
Oh,
So in the 70s, I grew up in Los Angeles. And
Okay.
then my dad got relocated to Chicago. And this is so basically from 1974 to 1982, I was in Los Angeles area. So every vacation, we would go and get in this Volkswagen bus and just go explore different national parks. We would go up to Yosemite. We would go up to Sequoia National Park. We would just we went to the deserts in the Mojave. It was just fantastic. So I would have to say, all those trips were very
that was
memorable
foundational
moments, which
to
getting back to the seed of my love for the outdoors, and hence Tellus.
Right. I like it. All right, Melissa, you ready for your second question?
Let's see, number 29.
What's been the most surprising thing about this business for you, about Tellus?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I think that is a tough question. What has been? Can you read that one more time?
What's been the most surprising thing? Like, you spent a couple of years planning and thinking, and now 2.5 years doing kind of more, right? December 2003?
Yeah, 2023. Mm-hmm. I guess, I don't know what the most surprising thing about it is. I want to say that, it's been harder than I thought it would be to get to this point. There's so many, coming out of, watching Joe go through, what he did with vanilla and the supply chain and everything. Yeah. I feel like there's so many more layers to this industry that we both learned a lot in this journey, just in how things work. But yeah, I thought it would be, I didn't think it would be this challenging, but I feel like, we've risen to all the challenges. And so it's just another part of the journey is, everything that we've learned, and we've learned a lot. So I feel like at this point, we're in a really good space. So I feel like a lot of the things that we had to learn that were hard are behind us. We understand how they work now, and we're stronger for it.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs. If I knew how hard it was going to be, I wouldn't have told my boss what I told him.
You have no idea until you're in it.
Yeah, fair enough. Joey, your second number, please.
I have number 10.
Number 10. What's a hobby or skill you've always wanted to pick up but never have, at least not yet?
I know the answer.
You do?
I know the answer to this,
but
I'm going to see what you say.
A hobby or a skill? Well, there's a few of them. I would say kite surfing would be one that I would really like to pick up. Actually, painting is another one that I would really like to pick up. Which I haven't. And those are probably, what was your thought?
The guitar.
Well, I picked that up, though. I've started, that's
like
what I want to expand
Perfect.
upon. I play I'm up to 8 songs.
But let's talk to me when you could actually play me a song.
Well, that's exactly
He's
right.
working on it.
I'm still in the basement. I'm working on my repertoire as far as, but I'm probably up to about 8 to 10 songs on guitar. But that is something I actually picked up. I'm talking about things I've never done before.
Understand.
And then travel. I mean, we're avid travelers. There's still, many places on our bucket list that we would like to go to.
Well, for our listeners out there, I'm going to be the selector and the person that first writes in with the answer of Joe's early camping trips to the national parks of California. That is the winner of the Tellus gear, coffee mug and hat.
Excellent.
And so, just write that into us on any of the social medias, Instagram or LinkedIn, and first person to respond will get that prize. I'm going to call a break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Awesome. How we do?
Great.
Okay. You have such a nice voice. I feel like
He does have the radio voice.
I sound like, I have the cold and I can hear myself.
Well, we're
Okay.
both coming
Everybody
off
that
cold.
listens knows that they get colds too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, don't sweat it. I'm going to take a quick potty
Okay.
break.
Okay.
Great.
When we come back, we'll jump into the time machine a little bit more.
Okay.
Even into the earlier years of like the family dynamic that you grew up in a little bit.
Sure.
We'll talk more about your kids.
Excellent.
And that journey and what they're off to do. And we'll get a little bit of advice for the next generation as well.
Cool.
Hi, this is Clint Jasperson, Managing Partner at Purpose Driven Wealth. We believe financial clarity leads to a life of contentment and purpose. Our mission is to guide clients through the complexities of wealth management retirement planning, and legacy using a values-driven, stewardship-based approach focused on provision, contentment, and enjoyment. With more than a century of expertise through Thrivent, we offer tailored strategies to help individuals and families achieve their goals and embrace generosity. Whether you're navigating a life or business transition or planning for the future, we're here to partner with you every step of the way. To learn more about Purpose-Driven Wealth, call 970-330-7411.
And we're back. And so what I want to do once we're back in the second half here is jump in the time machine right away, because we kind of started with the romance years and didn't really find out about young Melissa and young Joe. And so if I may, where would I have found you as a 5-year-old young lady, Melissa?
5 years old. I was one of 3 girls in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay. Oldest, youngest,
Middle child.
Okay.
I'm an Irish twin. So my older sister is only 14 months older, and my younger sister, she's just a couple years behind.
Yeah.
And I was just doing what I guess 5-year-olds do,
Yeah.
playing in the backyard.
Was your family from there? Your parents
Yes.
and stuff?
All my family, I come from a very large Irish Catholic family.
Okay.
So I would say the first time I took Joe to one of our family Christmas parties, I put a name tag on him and I said, if I don't introduce you, introduce yourself, because I'm probably related and I just haven't met them yet.
Oh, gosh.
So
Interesting. So, and what was the family dynamic? What, was your mom a stay-at-home mom? Did she work? What was your dad involved in?
my dad was probably at that point, he may have already been divorced. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
He had us 3 girls and then remarried. So I would say, growing up, probably someone who I spent a lot of time with was my grandmother, especially in the summers.
Yeah.
When we were out of school. So,
Interesting.
and she was from Indianapolis, born and raised in Indianapolis. Yeah. So
Also a big influence on your life, presumably. Mm-hmm. And was that traumatic? I mean, that divorce wasn't. Now everybody gets divorced, but in those days it was pretty unusual.
Yeah, I guess I don't think about it too much anymore. I guess
Sure.
yeah. But
You adapted well.
I adapted well,
regardless, yeah.
and I feel like they
Your
were divorced
sisters
at such
also.
a young age. It was there was a lot of things you don't remember.
Sure.
But yes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us don't really start having memories until we're 5 or so.
Right.
Were you good student right away? Were you introvert, extrovert, sporty?
Sporty. I played all the sports. I don't know. Maybe back then it was part of just how we went to school. You stayed and did all the after-school activities. So, I did brownies. I played volleyball, softball. I ran track. I did, all the things. As a good student, I would say that just maybe depended on the time
Or the teacher?
or the teacher, right?
That's
or
what it's been most on for me.
how engaged or not engaged I was. So I would say probably, a decent student, and then later in high school, maybe a little distracted. And
Okay.
then, my first couple years of college, really distracted.
By boys? By
No, just fun.
life?
Yeah, just kind of, I don't know.
Hanging.
College is,
Right.
it was like,
Lots of
this whole new world
things.
out there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, to the point where my counselor was like, we need to have a
You
talk.
need to suck it up and get a little
You
better
need to
grades.
just slow down and let's change this dynamic
I had
a
one of
little
those
bit.
talks as well,
So I was
actually.
like, okay, maybe it's time to pay, and which is how I ended up doing study abroad, and meeting Joe's friend Craig, who actually ended up introducing us. Was
Yeah.
my counselor was like,
See,
you're
if
going to
you wouldn't
need
have been
to.
a crappy student, you never would have had that conversation.
Yeah, I changed my major at that point, and then. Because I did that, I needed some extra coursework. So it was like, okay, I'll do a study abroad. Like, let's make this fun.
Interesting.
It doesn't have to be the same old, routine.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
that's a little bit of me.
Yeah, I like it. Joe, time machine to your 5-year-old self or so.
5 year, as I mentioned, I was in Los Angeles, Thousand Oaks, California, just northwest of Los Angeles. Great time to grow up there. It was in the 70s, and you had all the Hollywood magic going on in the area.
Yeah, super vibrant economy.
And believe it or not, in our local neighborhood, they filmed MASH back.
Oh,
then,
really?
like not too far
Interesting.
away from our house. $6 Million Man was a big one, which was filmed locally. Little House on the Prairie,
Wow.
which was another one. So it was just a great time in that area, full of ranches and it was vineyards and fruit gardens and. It was like kind of like a Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn
Did
type
you
of
have
situation.
brothers to share this
I
thing,
got
or sisters?
I'm the youngest of three.
Okay.
I got a middle brother and a oldest sister.
Okay, okay. And what had you in California there? What was your family up to? Your dad or
Dad, like I mentioned, he was in the insurance industry, starting an office, a local office there for Zurich Insurance, which
okay,
is still
and he
around.
was out in New York, and they moved him out to L.A.
Chicago.
or whatever.
I was born in Chicago.
Sorry,
When
yep.
I was 4, we moved out to Los Angeles.
Okay.
Big change, big move, especially coming from the Midwest.
Yeah.
My mom was actually a grade school teacher
Okay.
as well. She was an educator practically her whole career, which was great. So very, very positive experience. We had this large ranch behind us in which we used to
Yeah.
jump the fence, and there was a creek, and there was horses, and then there was cattle, which I remember getting chased up a couple trees, from a couple bulls. But
Yeah.
like I said, it
Really
was
interesting,
just happy-go-lucky.
And really just
time.
got drawn to California like a whole bunch of other people were being drawn to California in those years, right?
It was kind of
Wasn't just wannabe movie
beginning-
stars, yeah.
The beginning of people really getting imported into California. So it was just a really good time to be there.
Yeah.
Personally, I want to move back in this day and age.
Sure.
So timing was everything for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. And how about you? Same kind of doing all the sports?
I was very big on sports, very similar to Melissa. I was a big soccer player, baseball player, basketball. Played all the sports. Probably much more focused on sports than I was as far as school is concerned. Definitely distracted at school. I had very, very active mind. Still do. It was hard to really kind of hone in.
Still.
My focus. But I obviously got through school. I got through high school. I got through undergrad. But yeah, sports was a big part. I was introduced to playing golf. I ended up playing a little college golf as well. So just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Do you still play?
Still play. It's more social. It's a social outing for me. It's kind of a walk in the park.
Don't keep as much track of your handicap as you once did.
No. The funny thing is, I practiced so much back in the day. As I absolutely hate practicing. I could easily use some chipping practice, which
Right.
that's really kind of the last thing I want to do. Is so I just go out there and just kind of hit it. These days.
Yeah. And so I feel like we've kind of covered the romance days, but maybe set me to the circumstance when you guys first started your family. You were in Chicago. No.
We were here.
You were here? Okay.
We raised our families, our family
Okay.
right here in Fort Collins.
So you came here for that job, had not too many years, and then
We dated roughly 2 years after we got back from the Peace Corps, and we were basically bouncing back and forth from D.C. and Fort Collins.
Okay.
We did that for 2 years, so every 2-3 weeks we would take turns on who's visiting who.
interesting.
And I'll never forget this. Melissa actually had a conference for National Geographic in Las Vegas, roughly at that 2-year mark. And we were actually having breakfast underneath the Eiffel Tower at the Paris Resort
Yep,
Hotel.
yep.
And that's when the conversation came up of, what do you think about me, moving to Fort Collins? She was working very hard. I mean, you were working many hours back then for National Geographic. And then we both looked at each other and said, all right, let's give it a shot. And then we got engaged soon after that. And right after we got married in 2002. First child right around the corner, 2003. Our first daughter out of 3, and we
Call it the express package.
Right.
we once again we met at a later age. So we met at 30. So we both kind of knew what we wanted at that point in time.
Yeah. If you're gonna have a family,
And,
time is now.
Married at 32, first child at 33, and then we were pretty consistent having 2 other girls about 2.5 years apart from each other. Fort Collins, once again, a great place to raise a family. very, very happy with it. I used to call it a 1-horse town, and now we're probably about a 6-horse town here in Fort Collins.
Right.
I used to live on the south side of Fort Collins, and then in 2007 we moved to Risk Canyon in Bellevue.
Oh, is that right?
We're at the base of the
Okay.
foothills, so really been enjoying our time out there.
Well, if you see I love Wrist Canyon because it's one of the only places in the world that I've experienced where most of the automobile traffic will pull over and let you pass if you're on a fast-coming motorcycle.
They're respectful motorcycles.
If they're respectful.
And cyclists.
Yep.
We get a ton of cyclists in
Yep.
that area. And, we kind of prefer cows over people these days.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's talk about these girls. I'm not very good at math. What's that math? But the oldest one, age-wise now.
So the oldest, she actually just graduated college. She graduated from Butler in Indianapolis
congrats.
2 weeks ago. And she's staying in Indianapolis for the next year and kind of in a gap year space. She
Well,
studied.
because she's got 27 cousins and
Right.
great
A bunch of
aunts
family
and
there.
different things around there.
But it's funny. She started in California, and then after sophomore year, decided she wanted to be in Indiana, so
Okay.
she transferred.
And what's her name, if you don't mind?
Her name is Emma, and
Emma.
she just finished her degree in psychology at Butler. She wants to go back for grad school,
Okay.
but wanted to take a time out for the next year. So she's kind of working on what that looks like. Then we have Mary, our middle daughter. She just wrapped her first year at University of Missouri in Columbia.
Okay.
And she is studying. She just told us yesterday she kind of pivoted. She was an art person going in as an art major, and now she's moved into textile apparel management,
Okay.
which is interesting.
Right? She wants to take over Dad's company someday, or Mom and Dad's company.
Which would be fantastic.
which has been fun. So she's home for the summer. She just got home a few days ago and is only home for 9 weeks. So she has become my assistant
Oh,
for the
cool.
summer.
I love it.
She's loving it. Yeah, it's everything from like house projects to you get to shadow me as a TAM major. Shadow, us at meetings and things, and kind of listen and learn and see if this really is something you want to pursue.
What's the nickname of that college or whatever?
The program she's in is TAM.
Well, but the University of
Mizzou.
Mizzou.
Oh, Mizzou.
Mizzou, yeah. Actually, one of my best friends from Fort Collins, his daughter just completed her first year there, so they might be friends. Roth is Jillian Roth would be her name. So ask
I'll
around.
have to ask.
We'll ask her.
And your third?
And then our youngest is a sophomore, or she just finished her sophomore year at Pooter High School.
Okay, go Pooter.
Go Pooter. She's an Impala. And she's just kind of, getting through the high school years and, she's got a good head on her shoulders. She just went, she made it to the state championship tournament in tennis.
Okay, impressive.
Playing doubles tennis for Pooter. So she had a good season this year. She just finished her last day of school yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A lot of that transition. Joe, one of the games we play in this conversation is one-word description of the kids. And since Melissa just did the legwork there, maybe you want to...
Of all three?
No, one word for each.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good.
All right. I'll start with the youngest. I would say tenacity is a big one for our youngest. She always likes to persevere.
Yeah.
Middle child, one word, social. I would say she's extremely social and creative. I would throw that out there. Oldest, I would say pensive. She's
I don't even know what pensive means.
Cautious.
cautious,
Prudent, kinda.
thoughtful, prudent. Everything is well thought out.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I like it.
That was a bit of a curveball. You
Yeah,
just threw
yeah.
me there, Kurt. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't.
That's a
If
good
I
one.
warned you
That's a
about
good
it, then you wouldn't have so much a hard time with it.
Melissa, would you agree with those?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Okay.
So, if you were like giving advice not just to your daughters, but just the world, a young person in the world, kind of at that same phase in the whatever it is, 18, 20, 22, figuring out, you guys both had the blessing of early life crises, kind of, right? But there's a lot of people that are pensive about the world and where I should try to get educated so AI won't take my job and different things like that, right? Like, what kind of advice would either of you could start, really?
You want me to go?
Sure.
I would say, one of the things I think everybody should do is just go have experiences. Just try new things.
Yep.
If it's, if you're in a major and you feel like it's not working, it's okay to change. But put yourself out there, at the university level, get involved in things maybe you haven't tried. Like for myself, when I was in college, I tried the school paper. I tried selling ads for the school paper. I worked on the editorial side, and then I did study abroad, and that opened so many doors for me. And it introduces you to new experiences. It teaches you life lessons, whether they're positive or negative.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning from them, and I think that's so valuable.
A lot of saying yes, at least once.
Yeah. So I think it was the quote from the high school or the college graduation that I thought was really impactful. You're born with a brain, but life gives you a mind. And that was at Butler's graduation. That was by one of the keynote speakers. And I was like, that's really powerful, when you think about it. So it's filling your mind with all these experiences, and it kind of...
Totally.
You become who you are because of it.
Well, it's something that AI can never do. It can't go have experiences. It just, is a mirror of sorts on language, which means nothing, kind of. Yeah. I love that. Joe,
Sure.
any reflections there?
Along the same lines as Melissa just mentioned, I believe the youth, just looking at my own children and nephews and nieces and, friends around us, I think there's a lot of pressure on the youth today on really figuring out at an early age who you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
And unless you're specialized, which a lot of kids are, very specialized as
Sure.
far as where they want to go. But I think there's this really too much pressure, within your teen years. Of
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Choose something.
What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And they feel like they're a bit stuck at times.
Yeah.
And I just would just for those kids, I would say change is okay.
Yeah.
If something's not working,
Try things. Don't get into a bunch of debt.
Try something new. Well. Get a job.
Right. Either that or attend.
Right.
I'm a big proponent on getting a job at an early age. I started personally working when I was 12 as a caddy as a scene right out of Caddyshack outside of Chicago. It was kind of funny. But I would say, once again, don't be afraid of change. I would throw out there travel, too. Don't be afraid. We've, especially being Peace Corps volunteers, we really emphasize to our kids to have a chance to study abroad if you ever get a chance. See what the other side of that fence looks like. And I'm not just talking about, going to Cabo on a family
right,
vacation.
that's not traveling.
I'm talking about if you do get any type of opportunity to travel, especially to a developing country, you really, really understand, what makes the world go around and what it looks like on the other side of the fence. So
you mentioned earlier, Joe, that you did Outward Bound when you were like 16 or
correct,
something,
correct.
and also that a lot of times it was troubled youth kind of situation or whatever. Did you get into some trouble that got you there, or more?
So I would say the vast majority of Outward Bound. There's a very similar program up in Wyoming by the name of Knowles.
Okay.
So this is really based on outdoor education, opening yourself up to the outside world. So I would say the vast majority of students, both for Knowles and Outward Bound, are kids, in their teens that are just interested in the outdoors in general. And then they do put you in different leadership, roles within the program. So each student within the program gets a chance to be a leader. Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I loved about Outward Bound, and this actually came from the Native Americans, is you did a 3-day solo. So you would actually have to stay by yourself for 3 days in a given area. Limited on literally, I think.
Without your phone?
Oh, no, there wasn't a phone. Well, in 1986, there was no phone. I'm proud to say I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 32 years old. But you would have like 12 Ritz crackers, a little bag of raisins and peanuts, and you basically would fast. And for the American Indians, it was a bit of a vision quest.
Yeah.
But it's a time to reflect. And for the disadvantaged youth, it was a big deal for especially inner city kids, really reflecting on who am I, what am I doing, who do I want to be, how do I treat others, who's important to me in my life. And that's outside of, ouvisly hiking and doing peaks and just being outdoors. So, it just really did a lot for me. It changed my world.
Sure. Sounds like it. Yeah. Let's talk about the store. How did you
Mm-hmm.
choose a location?
We spent about 6 months looking for
Okay.
a location. Old Town's a tough place to find
Yeah, yeah.
to find retail space. And so when we were looking at roughly 1,500 square feet to 2,000 square feet. We were looking for something new that we can put our own signature on. So our location, which is right across from El Burrito, right in between Ginger and Baker and New Belgium, really very close to the river, the Pooter over there, was a brand new location. So we were able to get pretty creative with the space. And
Gotcha.
we were going after kind of a rustic, contemporary feel and look.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, very natural look. Our veneer on the walls is a beetle kill from Wyoming that we use for the wood siding. But we looked, of course, everybody wants to be off of Mountain and College, which is
Right.
very limited. Very limited.
The restaurant space there was available briefly, but it might not make sense to make a retail work there.
to rehab that space would have been difficult. So our location ended up being, in my opinion, perfect. 1,600 square feet, perfect size for what we want to show as far as our goods are concerned. And I do feel that the quote-unquote river district, the up-and-coming area,
Yeah.
is really in the next 5 years. It's really going to be a true part of Old Town.
I believe that's correct.
and
Yeah.
that's right around the corner for us.
They got to kind of figure out what the story is with the parking situ. Is the
Parking
city
is
actually going to
limited.
support
Parking
parking over
is
there?
limited.
It's very
I
challenging.
hope this city is.
I hope the city is
being-
listening.
listening and being very proactive,
Yeah.
because that's where the development is going to be happening. For Old Town. So parking is limited. You have that space right across the street from Ginger and Baker that has become public parking, but that's going to change soon.
Yeah.
There's going to be an apartment complex there soon.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
And so it's even going to be more limited. So and it's even changed since in the last 2 years. That whole area, it's constantly developing. So
Yeah.
we're very happy to be part of that community.
Talk to me about Fort Collins. Like, the internet was here, but barely doing much when you guys moved to town, respectively, about the same time I did, really. And it's grown and developed. Is this home for a long time, or if you were going to move, where would you move after the kids are out of the nest and Tellus is working on its own or whatever?
I think I can speak for both of us. We're not moving. This is home to us.
Yeah.
Raising our 3 girls here in Fort Collins. It's been a pleasure. And just getting back to, we as a family, we do all things Colorado as far as outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
I have two daughters that I'm very proud of. I'm proud of all my daughters, but they out-ski me now.
Oh, okay.
So they're beyond me on all mountain terrain. I'm like, okay, you guys go. I'll meet you
I'll catch up to you.
I'll meet you at the bottom of the chairlift. So it just all things Colorado. Getting back to the hiking, getting back to the camping, the backpacking, the skiing, the fishing, which I've never. I'm a terrible fisherman, by the way, especially with my dad growing up in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
He was a terrible fisherman. So no, we're not going anywhere. We do have a place up in Winter Park that is kind of our getaway.
Sure.
And we absolutely love it up in Tabernash. Been going up there for 20 years. The city has changed. When we moved here, I believe the population was 60,000, and now we're up to getting close to 190,000.
Right.
So three times the size than when we moved here. With that, obviously getting back to city planning, there's a lot that goes into that. So, we used to rotate, three restaurants, and now we're up to maybe 8.
You're a pretty good-looking guy with a good business history and stuff. Maybe some local politics for you, Joe. Is that a temptation?
No. No. To see Tellus grow is going to be very gratifying for both of us, and to getting back to that, give back 100. The more we grow, the more we can give away.
Yeah.
Being in my mid 50s, getting back to travel and bucket list, and so we will be empty nesters in a couple of years. Definitely want to focus on getting back to the personal hobbies. We definitely want to focus on that. Politics to me, it's a tough place.
Dangerous brand, especially if you got a brand.
Especially this day and age. These parties are so divided. I mean, I'm the independent, out there that's like, I'll argue both sides, and so I've been a registered independent for over 20 years now. But it's a bit of an ugly, business as far as politics are
Yeah,
concerned
yeah.
this day and age.
It's my blog that went out today, probably earlier today, kind of was bemoaning the fact that both parties seem to be leading our nation into bankruptcy, from a federal level, with different spending priorities.
Exactly.
But neither one of them seems to care that we're, borrowing a third of what we're spending as a federal government. That just don't work.
Well, just crossing the aisle this day and age it's not there as it used to be. We grew up with Democrats working together with Republicans and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that in quite some time, which is very unfortunate as far as I'm concerned. Just
Right.
being productive for the embetterment of the country. And I just hope that they can start, these two parties can start working together and not be so divided.
We'll be in a tough place if they can't start figuring it out a little bit, because if everything that Trump does is terribly evil to everybody on the other side and vice versa, it's hard to ever find that compromise. So, any questions for me?
You have a wonderful radio voice, by the way, and I'm sure you can make a career out of it.
Can anybody make a career in radio?
Where is your future?
Where is my future? That's an interesting question. I think it's here as well, as a headquarters, Fort Collins. I would love to, see Loco Think Tank continue to grow as a concept outside of Northern Colorado, and in my ideal world, it would grow in such a way that it would allow me more flexibility to travel and do podcasts with interesting people around the country. I think I love the notion of doing podcasts for a living someday, but we're a long ways away from that. As you probably know, in navigating those business decisions along the way, it's such a lonely place. And there aren't that many organizations doing what Loco Think Tank does and supporting, especially the little guys in that 7-employee realm where you started, and vetting out that decision to go from a more of a wholesale to a retail brand, and thinking about and then actually building an integrated business. That vertical integration was really the secret to your long-term success, it seems. So how do I build an integrated brand? Can I do something with the podcast and the think tank chapters and things like that?
I think you can.
Probably. I hope so. That's the goal.
Yeah,
That's
you
great.
can.
Well, I sure appreciate you guys taking time to be in here. I really appreciate what you're doing, honestly. I think the notion of having a sustainable enterprise in that space is just grand on its face. And, your products are bomb. I can't wait until I have 5 of your gear items in my itinerary instead of just 2.
We co-brand a lot. It's a big portion of our business. So
Yeah, that's going to be my
love to help you out.
facilitator gift this year is going to be that. And I'm looking forward to making those deliveries.
Thank
Great.
you, Kurt.
So
Thank
thanks
you.
for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Ava.
Thank you.